Hey guys, welcome back to RUE MORGUE TV. I am Executive Editor Andrea Subasati, just here with a quick reminder that you need to subscribe to RUE MORGUE magazine, and you need to do so right now. Why? Because 10 lucky subscribers are going to receive a free roll of zombie outbreak tape, courtesy of Fearworks. This is the perfect prop to decorate your house for Halloween, and it's just in time. So subscribe now with the link provided below. Enjoy the episode, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm Steve Kosansky, writer-director of PG Psycho Goreman, co-director of The Void, and writer-director of Manborg. And I'm here today to talk to you about stop-motion animation for RUE MORGUE TV. I fell in love with stop-motion at a very early age. I grew up on Ray Harryhausen movies, Clash of the Titans, Jason the Argonauts.
One man defying a universe of mortal and immortal danger. Jason and the Argonauts. A search that became a legend.
The scene with Talos in Jason the Argonauts was huge to me as a kid. I just loved that sequence so much when he's stalking all the Argonauts on the island. I just thought that was so cool. So when I entered my teens and started watching horror movies, I noticed that stop motion was being used again and again as an effects technique. It gave me an opportunity to fall in love with it again because I saw it being used in a more horror context, but seeing it pop up in something like Evil Dead or The Gate, it being used in such a horrific manner, I found really fascinating. As I started making my own films, like animations and live action films, I would use stop motion as a way to execute certain effects and bring creatures to life. That's carried through to today, where I've integrated it into pretty much every movie I've made up to this point, and is still one of my favorite mediums to dabble in.
Welcome to the show.
As my skills expanded and I transitioned more into live action films, I always found a way to weave stop motion into those projects as well, because I just have so much fun making these characters and bringing them to life.
May the gods watch over me.
So stop motion in a nutshell is the process of taking still pictures where in between each frame you move your little puppet character like little minute like incremental movements. So when you run all the still pictures together as a video, it appears as though that character is moving. It's a very simple but time-consuming process. Typically when doing stop motion, you have what's called an armature, which you use to keep your character in a specific position, but is also posable. So this is an example of what's known as a ball and socket armature. So as you can see, you can move it incrementally and it stays in that position. This is like the more expensive way of doing a stop motion armature. A lot of my armatures are just wire armatures. I have this aluminum wire here just to demonstrate. It's like posable in the same way that like a ball and socket armature is posable, but it's a lot cheaper. A lot of times though, this will break at a certain point. So a lot of these characters have a finite lifespan. So I have to kind of plan around that. A lot of times you build your characters in such a way that you can replace wire if it breaks, to accommodate for if that comes up. So this little guy here from PG is an example of wire armature stop motion puppet, whereas 3J here is actually a ball and socket armature. I have some favorite stop motion sequences that really I've carried with me through my career as wanting to emulate at some point. I really love the end fight in RoboCop 2 with the Kane robot, animated by Phil Tippett. Is just like a real tour de force of stop motion. It's integrated so well into the movie, and while it doesn't look like real per se, the craft of it is so immaculate that like every time I watch it, I find little details that I latch onto. With something like Terminator, where there's a full-bodied endoskeleton robot at the climax of that film, like in the 80s, there's no other way to really execute that other than stop motion. And so I found that fascinating growing up, like seeing all these horror films and sci-fi films that had to resort to stop motion. Even Star Wars uses it. And I loved it as a technique, as a way of executing special effects. I really liked that it was a way to like bring characters to life and have them interact with people in live action. That was just such a like fun technique to me, and something that I still find really fascinating, still go back to. Stop motion, one of the issues with it is that there's no blur in the movement. When characters move, because it's still pictures, the movement, it's like crystal clear in each frame. And so you're watching these movements happen, and you're not getting like the natural motion blur from a camera. You like wave your hand on camera and, you know, it smears and it's not perfectly clear when something's in movement. But with stop motion, there are tricks around that to show a little bit of motion blur, but typically it maintains that kind of like weird, uncanny effect of not blurring, and it just makes it feel creepy and unsettling and uncanny in a way that like no other effects technique really has. So in stop motion, you typically want to have your set and your tripod and everything totally locked down because any minuscule movement will register on camera. I made that mistake as a kid starting out in stop motion. I did not lock down my tripod, and I'd spent all day doing a shot, and I like reached over to grab something and I tripped on the tripod and it kind of shifted a few inches, which seems like not a big deal, but in stop motion it was totally ruined my shot. You know, it seems obvious now, but at the time as a kid I didn't know any better. So that was one of the big learning curves for me, was making sure that your set is locked down, your characters are locked down as well, because I would also fall prey to that occasionally, having my characters just fall over in the middle of the shot. A lot of times, more like high-end stop motion setups, they will actually have like the floor of their little stop motion set, they'll be able to screw up through the floor to lock in their characters so they stay put, which was something I wasn't doing when I was starting out. So yeah, I'd screw up a lot of shots by having my characters tip over randomly. Another technique that I learned that I always apply to my stop motion animation. Stop motion, it's a process where you start your animation, you don't really know where it's going to end up. It's not like traditional hand-drawn animation where a lot of times they'll like draw the start frame and the end frame, and then they fill in between, and they know, they can see like what's at the end and they know what they're working towards. Where stop motion, you're kind of just going with the animation, you don't know where you're going to end up. So I found, for me, a lot of times I would animate my shots in reverse. So I would start at the end frame, because typically a shot, like I want to end on like a pose or something very specific. And so I would start there and animate my shots backwards and then reverse the footage in the edit. You know, even if like the start frame wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, like my end frame would be a nice composition and the character would be in the pose that I wanted him to be in.
Hey, did you use my credit card to buy a solid gold body?
Yes, I did.
I'm gonna get you for this.
Well, that's about all I have to say about stop motion. I'm Steve Kosansky. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave a comment, start some discussion about your favorite stop motion sequences in genre films. Yeah, if you want to see more of the stuff I'm noodling on, you can check me out at Kill Kostansky on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching. This has been RUE MORGUE TV. Stay scared. Stop motion won't be stopping anytime soon. I'll see myself out.
And the other